The process of true healing and transformation requires that we work together with our shadow selves to address our traumas, wounds, and moments of brokenness. And yet, this part of healing is often overlooked because it requires self-awareness and vulnerability. And why is that, you might ask? Because the ego wants to protect us, which is perfectly normal and honestly, to be expected, because that's what the ego is here to do. The ego exists as a form of protection. It acts as a shield, but also what drives us as well. It safeguards our emotions while managing other people's perceptions of us. But the problem begins when the ego goes unchecked, or when fear, pain, trauma, and perception begin driving our behaviors in ways that become destructive instead of protective. That is when we start to become imbalanced in discernment and in truth. But here is the truth. The very things we attempt to suppress often carry the potential to help us heal. For me personally, one of my deepest wounds is surrounded around using my voice and expressing how I truly feel. Growing up in a Black American household, like many of us, we weren't allowed to talk back or openly express how we felt, regardless on whether we felt that something that was being done to us was actually wrong. We just had to shut up and bear it. It was almost as if having an opinion, questioning something, or speaking up about how something made you feel could sometimes feel like the greatest crime you could ever commit. And even in some cases, retaliation would follow. In some households, that retaliation could even become physical. So over time, many of us learned that silence felt safer than expression, even when something deeply hurt us or didn't feel right. And over time, that conditioning followed me into my friendships, relationships, and career life. There would be situations where I knew I was being emotionally or mentally abused, manipulated, or taken advantage of, but out of fear of conflict, fear of being dismissed, or fear of being told that I was wrong, I stayed quiet in a lot of situations, all for the purpose of keeping the peace. But the more silent I became, the more egregious people's behavior towards me became. And so I became used to dealing with things in silence because I didn't want to cause a rift or create more tension. But eventually, at some point, I was forced to confront the shadow of what I believed would happen to me if I spoke up, making people angry or causing conflict. I started to notice that I had allowed my voice, my inner knowing, to be stifled for so long that it was becoming a poison that slowly began to chip away at my self-esteem and the way I function in the world. I started to feel disembodied and disconnected from everything and everyone, like I was just floating through life, completely disassociated from my emotions until that silence began to be my safe space. I'd become completely comfortable there, comfortable in isolation and silence. Until one day, enough became enough. I was fed up, pushed beyond my limits, and then finally, boom, I was forced to stand up. And what I realized was in that moment that I stood up from the table, the illusion began to shatter. The dynamics shifted, the fear lost its power, and the things that once seemed to be so intimidating no longer held the same weight once I stopped shrinking and blaming myself to maintain this illusion of peace. Also, in many ways, speaking up became an act of shattering not only illusions, but the dispelling of lies. Not only the lies surrounding other people's behavior, but also the lies that I had internalized about myself, my voice and what it is that I deserved to tolerate. Over the past several years, especially within the last 6 years, life has forced me to confront that wound head on. I faced some of the greatest challenges and oppositions in my life that in many ways it forced me to activate my voice. Even now, there are moments where my voice still shakes or cracks when I speak about certain things because speaking up doesn't always feel natural to me. That trauma, that anxiety, and that conditioning are still things that I actively work through. I became so used to carrying things in silence that learning how to speak confidently, openly, and unapologetically has been a part of my personal healing process. And I think that's why discernment, truth, and authenticity have become so important to me now, because I know what it feels like to lose your voice trying to protect yourself. Through my own experiences, I've learned that real healing only becomes possible when we embrace the truth. When darkness seems to envelop us, our pain seeks recognition and expression before it can transform into wisdom. And so, we must stop hiding our scars. We must stop silencing the truth. So often we turn to muses, role models, and sources of inspiration to better understand our identities. Yet, our trauma, our challenges, and moments of survival often become a part of our soul's distinctive signature. Our inner strength is often built from the blueprint of what we've endured. That is why healing is not about pretending the darkness never existed. It's about time we embrace the darkest parts of ourselves and start creating from its ashes. And so, today, ask yourself, what truth have I been silencing? It's time to transform through it, even if it shakes the room.